All right, welcome to the 13th Engage Your Fanbase podcast on Blab. And I'm Kara Karma from Simon Says Booking and Publicity and EngageYourFanbase.com, music marketing blog aimed at demystifying music marketing. And we come every week on Blab to talk about different topics in music marketing. I'm joined by my co-host today, Erwin Schmankwitz of Ever Upward Entertainment.
That's correct. Based out of Denver, Colorado.
Yep. Music booking and manager extraordinaire. And our special guest today, and I hope I say this correctly, is Michelle Stinson-Ross, right?
You got it.
Social Michelle R., who has been all over Blab and all over Twitter and is going to help us demystify Twitter for musicians today. And I'm very excited to hear what you have to say on this topic. You're, like I was starting to say before, I see you all over Blab, and I wish I had, like I said before, I have two 8-month-olds, so I have to blab when they're not screaming. I wish I had more time to be able to do this. Like, you seem to be on every time I'm interested in being on in the most interesting blabs. So I'm really honored that you decided to join us today and talk about this topic. And now you said that your husband is a musician?
Yes, my husband is a professional musician. He is an orchestrator and arranger. He does a little bit everything from choir arrangements to string arrangements to orchestration and composition for film, video, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've been doing this for a long time.
Nice.
So tell us a little bit about your background before we start into, questions and discussion.
All right. So my personal background is actually digital marketing. I have been a digital marketing consultant for several years now. I work with large brands, small brands, B2B, B2C. I've done a little bit of everything. I work not only with Twitter marketing, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, but also broad spectrum content marketing and social media marketing. So basically, I work with brands to help them raise their visibility across the board in digital media, whether that's their website or across social or email or just about anything else.
Do you do this as a consultant on your own, or are you part of a company?
I am an independent consultant, so I can appreciate the rest of the independent artists and what they kind of have to go through to keep business going and keep fans interested. So, hey guys, I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, our first question tonight for you is, why use Twitter? I mean, as a musician, and I think that's the most important question is, a lot of musicians, I talk to a lot of my clients, they say, yeah, we're on Twitter, but, they tweet their Facebook posts or whatever it is. They're not, I know. And it's really, or it's like coming from bands in town. I don't even know what they're automating it, but it's not the discussion. So why should they be interested in this platform? What does it have to offer?
What does Twitter have to offer that the other channels don't? Really, really super easy. And this has been the case ever since the inception of Twitter, is that Twitter is by far the best, biggest cocktail party on the planet. If you want to go meet new people, expose new fans to what you do, reach out to people all over the place that you've never met before, Twitter's the place to do that. Now, Facebook's cool in that it gives us a platform and a page and that kind of stuff to keep in touch with fans that we've already collected. But Twitter's really the place to go collect those brand new fans that have never heard of us before.
Now, why is that more so than YouTube?
I think mostly because the outreach is a lot easier. I mean, yes, YouTube enables a lot of discovery, but you have to do a lot of heavy lifting in order to get that discovery to happen. You have to create video content. You have to be able to optimize that content for YouTube search. Then you have to add the social component on top of it, where you're going and subscribing to other people, commenting on other stuff, getting other people to come to your YouTube channel. And frankly, if you really want to drive a YouTube subscription base, you really need Twitter in order to drive new subscribers to keep upping that number on YouTube. You really have to be using Twitter in tandem with that. That Twitter is that first quick, easy opportunity to introduce somebody to what you do as an artist. And whether that... Sure, go ahead. I'm out.
Easy? I mean, you know, I understand what you're saying with the whole content thing. And, you know, you have to upload content with YouTube and a lot of heavy lifting. How would you say it's easier with Twitter to, you know, reach out to those people if you don't have content? Because I feel like, you know, at least for me, and you know, I love having you on here as well, because I'm one of those people who haven't really used Twitter. I mean, I really only got Twitter when Kara started getting me on this podcast, so I'm relatively new to using it efficiently as well. You know, it's kind of hard for me to think about how it's easier to gain fans without having content, though, like you're saying with YouTube and with Facebook, that you can, you know, continue reaching out and kind of promote what you already have on your page.
Well, obviously you're going to have content as an artist. You're either, hopefully you're doing both, but either or, you're recording content. You have music that people can go find, whether that's on SoundCloud or iTunes or Reverb Nation, or hopefully you've got some recorded content. That's stuff that you can share. There are links. This is digital. You can share that stuff. Hopefully you're also an actual live artist. You're out there gigging. You're going to be here, there, wherever. Obviously you have opportunities to share. Here's where we're going to be. Here's when we're going to be there. Come join us. Come hang out. Also, those live events enable you or one of your team to kind of follow along and shoot pictures, shoot video, tweet what's going on. The live events give you the opportunity to create content in that moment. So if you do anything creative, content is really not your worry. You're creating content. That's why you're in this business. As a musician, right, as an artist, you've got the content. It's just a matter of figuring out how to serve that content to an audience and get them to kind of follow along with you. Obviously with Twitter, that's, you know, nice short links, little bits of conversation. But here's the key. With Twitter, you kind of have to actively go find people to connect with. And it's really, really easy on Twitter to do that, because I actually worked with a country band here in the Central Texas area called Southern Sky. And one of the things we did early on to get their fan base on Twitter growing was not only were we sharing videos of live gigs or recording sessions or whatever, we're just kind of sharing a slice of life in that moment to create content on Twitter. But we were also looking for fans of country music that they already like the style of music that we were doing. They just hadn't ever heard of us in particular. There's tons of ways to do that. Obviously, you can go searching for the radio stations on Twitter that play the type of music that you perform. Go check out their fan bases. Other artists, whether they're small local artists or whether they're big national artists.
Now, are you talking about checking out their followers and following them?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Just wanted to spell it out.
Trust me, this is one of the cool things about Twitter, where you can't necessarily do that in other channels very easily. It is piece of cake, and actually it is encouraged, because that is a great way to kind of qualify and make sure that the people that you're connecting with are genuinely interested in what you're doing. Go find people that already show some kind of interest in the type of music, art, whatever it is that you do. Go follow them. People appreciate it on Twitter when you take a moment to follow and comment something to them. Hey, I noticed that you were at the such and such concert the other night. Hope you enjoyed it. Come check out our music sometime. My only thing there is try not to be too pushy about, oh, follow me, follow me, follow me.
Right.
Just be cool. I mean, just give people a shout out. Let them know you thought they were cool, and leave it at that.
Yeah. What should the musician's goal be on Facebook? You know, I'm enough. So, whoa, sorry, Twitter. The That was quite a Freudian slip. But anyway, you know, I talk a lot with my clients about, you know, having a goal, you know, having a why. What's your why? Um, is the why connecting with new people who you would never have connected with before, about something that you have in common? It feels to me
Yeah.
like that's the
Yes.
why.
That's exactly the why. Um,
Mhm.
Same reason you'd go to any other kind of in-person networking event, because basically
Mhm.
that's what Twitter is. Unlike any other social platform out there, Twitter really is like a networking event where you are all gathered together in one place around a topic that interests all of you, and it's a
Mhm.
free-for-all as to I can go walk up to anybody that's interested in that topic and start a conversation. And that's really what you kind of have to have in your mind about Twitter in particular, is it's the conversation. Go find somebody that's talking about something that genuinely interests you and engage in that conversation. Um,
Mhm.
I know, particularly with musicians and songwriters, there's always a story behind the songs that they're creating, what they're performing, where they're performing. There's always a journey that is a part of a musician's life. That's what people want to hear about. They want to hear about your journey. They want the human aspect of all of this creativity. They want to understand what it is that drives you to create this cool stuff. You just have to be able to be willing to open up and share that a little bit.
Well, you know, you were talking about content earlier, and I think a lot of musicians don't think that they have content, which is funny, because it's what they do is they create
Right,
content.
right.
But it's not just about, you know, putting up your videos and saying your shows and putting up pictures, but you know, I find the most interesting for the musicians I follow is, you know, what's going on behind the scenes and what are you thinking? And I'm writing this song and what I'm thinking. And it's hard for musicians to realize that that is valuable
Mm-hmm.
to share. Does that make sense?
I can appreciate why it's hard for them to see the value in sharing it. I know that working with my husband, who is a professional musician, he's like, why? Why do I want to take the time to share this? Who's going to care? Well, there's lots of people that care. They want to understand what was the process and what drove the creation of this. Because here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, music is inherently emotional. When you
Mm-hmm.
listen to it, it will evoke some kind of emotion. What, you
Hmm.
know, good, bad, you know, I identified with the pain, or I identified with that feeling of being in love, or it is emotion in one of its, you know, most, I don't know, gut level forms. It transcends me trying to verbally express emotion into something completely different. It's that emotional connection that starts the ball rolling with your fan base anyway. For whatever reason, this song or that song just really hit somebody in the gut. They want to talk about why that meant something to them. By being on Twitter, you leave that door open for them to come to you and say, wow, that song really moved me. This was really amazing. You touched me at a point in my life when I really needed it. Those are the conversations that you want to have. And if you're there, if they can see that you're not just posting up when you're having a show or when your next album releases, if they can see that you're an actual human being on Twitter, they're going to reach out to you and tell you, hey, you know, that song meant something special to me. I want to know more. What, you know,
Yeah.
And do you see a lot of fans, reacting the way that you're saying? I mean, it's a little bit. Twitter, is different from other social media platforms in the sense that, it's kind of, or at least I feel that it's, there and then, the next moment it's gone. It's very in the moment type of marketing.
mhm.
Do
Real
people
time.
actually, engage with whoever they're following? Do you see that a lot? Because that's kind of one of the issues, that I have problems seeing is, if I post something, there's just not I don't see as much engagement on Twitter as, I do on Facebook with things that are not as, in the moment and, are there for people to, go back to a couple hours later and there's still a conversation there and there's still, reactions and there's still engagement and retention with fans. How do you see that, on Twitter?
I think a lot of that has to do with how you approach Twitter and how committed to the Twitter fan base that you are. Because sure, if over a period of time your fans discover, well, okay, they have an account, they share information every once in a while, but they really don't listen when I comment to them, then yeah, they're going to quit making the effort to engage. The point is that if you're going to be there, you really need to be there and pay attention to when you get those pop-up alerts on your mobile phone or, whatever else you have tied to Twitter. Make sure that when somebody does give you a shout out that you're engaging with that.
Yeah, I think social listening is important in so many other areas, but Twitter especially, like it is so real time and it seems to me people are looking for that immediate feedback.
Well, I go back to the cocktail party analogy here, because if you're walking around a group of people, you've got your favorite beverage in your hand, and somebody walks up to you and says, "Hey, I've heard of you. You write some really great songs. I really appreciate da 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 about this song," and you just kind of stand there and go, and don't respond back to them, then yeah, they're going to go, okay, that was kind of weird. I'm walking off to go talk to somebody else. The same rules apply to Twitter. If somebody, walks up to you, to your face and says, "Wow, your music is really cool," and all they get back from you is crickets, they're going to stop engaging. But
right,
that's why I will tell musicians and any artist on Twitter that's what it's most like. If you're not present in that moment, because it is real time, then you're missing out on that moment.
Right.
Take advantage when somebody mentions you to mention them back. Yeah. Reply, respond.
Can I just say something real quick? Two things. Number one, we're going to open up the seat later if anybody has any questions for Michelle. And number two, can you guys see comments in the right hand? Is it just black?
I can see comments.
I see that Axel Happy's joined, that Bill's joined, that Circle City Records.
I don't have any comments, so I'm going to refresh my screen real quick.
Okay.
Because I seem to be having some kind of issue. All right, and then we'll continue. Sorry.
No worries. While we're waiting for her to refresh, hey, Blab, we kind of need some help over here. Our host is not able to see comments. She's having some issues with just kind of the basic hosting duties here. Can we get a little help, please? And sometimes just giving a shout out to Blab is helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that. We are all new to this as well, so any input is good input. All right, so you're calling in.
So we'll see. Sometimes it takes some. Call in. You know what, Kara? You may actually. You were not able to add Edward as a host. Okay, she's probably. No worries, darling. You're good. You're good. Just try and hop back in. Erwin is added as a host. Okay. So even if you have to completely shut down your browser and come back in, you should be able to.
Cool.
So long as Erwin is the host.
How do you open a seat?
There you go. You just did it. There we go.
All right. Woohoo. Yeah, everything's like working again. All right. Sorry. Yeah, it's nice to be able to see the comments. All right. So where were we? So one thing I wanted to talk to you about is consistency.
Yeah.
And, that really is goes into how, when and how much and that kind of thing, and maybe scheduling conversation as well. But the role of consistency.
Well, and that's just it. you have to be, as an artist, you have to be consistent about practicing, about songwriting, about bookings, about everything else in your life. Why isn't social media just a part of that routine?
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to sit down and rehearse, however long, an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, so just schedule right during that or right next to that rehearsal time, say, I'm going to commit to sharing a little bit about what I'm rehearsing, what I'm thinking about writing. Take a little bit of time to go look for some new fans to follow. Yes, absolutely. If you're not consistent, then you're not going to get anything out of it. But then again, that's the same with any other endeavor in your life as an artist. If you're not going to consistently pursue it, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you're saying about, like, being committed to Twitter and not kind of just getting a Twitter and leaving it off. And when you see those notifications, going back and actually interacting with those fans for sure.
When I talk to bands about Twitter, I suggest that they pick a point person and that person really get into it, because that having a band all together be like, yeah, we're going to do Twitter, and it's great if everybody tweets once in a while, but
because everybody forgets. It's like, oh, I thought you were taking care of that.
Exactly.
No, you were going to take care of that. It's like, no, we need a designated spokesperson that takes that responsibility and makes sure that we're doing it.
Yeah, it's really important to have that point person. The buck stops here. This is your social media platform. You are gonna, and then it's hopefully somebody who's interested in it, obviously, but somebody who's going to be listening all the time, because listening is so important. But anyway, that's what I've been recommending to clients. And I mean, this is saying, I mean, I've got to say that I'm not a Twitter expert, probably because I, in my job, have to spread myself, and that's one thing that there's, bands have to do the same thing. You're spreading yourself thin, and I'm only one person doing it, but being consistent across platforms is very, very difficult. Anyway, just a second, let me answer them.
Going on that, the consistency, having one person, like you said, Kara, is definitely helpful. How important do you think it is on that same level to have that one person for consistency of voice? Over the years, I've learned a lot about, social media, and, most people recommend that only one person do it, not because, that person will remember and it's a responsibility to them, but so that, there's not varying posts of different language to, keep that same language. How important is that in Twitter as compared to, other social media outlets, do you think? Do you think people still, interact and still get the same, even if it's not, the same voice?
Well, actually, there's some cool ways to handle that. Obviously, yes, we can go with a single point person that is always the spokesperson for the band on Twitter, which is cool. And obviously, you will definitely have a very consistent voice with that. Here's what's interesting. For those bands that every member has something to contribute and they really do a good job of it, it's really easy to just tweet on the band handle and append your initials to it. Anybody that's really familiar with the band will know that HR is one person, and that, or you can even use first names. Like for Southern Sky, most everybody that follows the band knows Jamie's the lead singer. If it's from Scott, they know it's from the drummer and one of the other songwriters. There are ways to go around that. And obviously, if you're using your initials, obviously you're not taking up too many character spaces, although who knows? Twitter says that they're going to expand our character limit, so that might not be a worry for too much longer. But that's a way to include everybody and actually let people see the varying flavors of the band and get more than the sense of one person's personality. Totally okay to do that. And probably more so in Twitter than some other places, so long as, again, you're consistent with the way you handle it and say, okay, here's the rule. We're all going to be responding and participating, but just make sure that you append your initials so that they have an idea of who was responding in that moment. Then, Bob's your uncle, you're set.
Good advice right there. While we're on subject, from a Twitter guru, what do you feel about the expanding of characters that Twitter apparently claims it is going to happen?
This is actually how we met.
Yeah, I was ranting about it that day.
Oh, really?
Okay, no, I have to be completely honest. I am a total Twitter addict. So when I first got into social media, just on my own personal level, I did MySpace, I did Facebook, and a friend of mine turned me on to Twitter. And oh my gosh, did I have so much fun on Twitter. Twitter hooked me more so than any of the other platforms that I currently use, that I'm currently exposed to. Twitter has always been my favorite. And I've been on Twitter consistently since about 2007 or so. So I've been doing this a while, and I am a serious devotee of Twitter. So, the 140 character limit was never really an issue for me. Actually, it was kind of cool to get me to learn how to communicate very succinctly. Brevity is the soul of wit. Well, I must be one of the most witty people on the planet. I've learned how to do that, right? But I can understand how new Twitter users that haven't spent as much time on the platform as I have come into it, and they're like, what is this? And why can I only type a few words? And wrapping your brain around what this thing is a little complicated. And honestly, in my mind, Twitter really hasn't done a good job of providing the users with guidance, especially new users that they're hoping will stay on this platform. So I can see reasons for expanding that limit. However, expanding it from 140 to 10,000 characters, I'm not so sure that that's a really bright idea.
Aren't the number of characters that you will see before expanding the tweet, isn't it still 140?
Actually, Twitter has been quite mum on exactly how they're going to handle that. Now, one would suppose that if they're not going to show that full-length tweet immediately, and you have to click to expand, then it's probably still going to be 140 characters, and therefore that first 140 characters has got to catch people's attention, or they won't even bother to expand to hear what you had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
What are they? Sorry, Kara. Are they expanding? Do they have a number that is that they're supposedly expanding to?
The published character limit expansion has been stated as 10,000 characters.
Oh, wow.
That's enormous when you go from 140 to 10,000. Now, having said that, the direct messaging system within Twitter has been that length for quite some time. And honestly and truly, I have never received a direct message via Twitter that was that long. Yes, we have that many characters available to use. Very few people do that. One of the things you have to remember about Twitter, and I'm looking for my device over here on the desk, is that the vast majority of people use Twitter with this device right here. In which case, people are not going to sit here and with thumbs for 10,000 characters. They're just not. Right. But obviously, upping that character limit a bit does make communication a little bit easier. You don't have to be quite so succinct, but I will still advise anybody that is considering Twitter, do your best to be as succinct and as brief as you possibly can. By forcing yourself to do that, you honestly wind up becoming a better communicator.
Right.
I agree completely.
And
I agree completely.
Direct messaging is just private, correct? That's not
correct. That is
public.
It had been just one-on-one for a very long time, but if you go into Twitter now, either on the mobile app or in an app like TweetDeck on your desktop, that kind of thing, you can actually do group messages. You can include more than one person in that private series of messages. I've actually coordinated some stuff where I was talking to, 2 or 3 people at the same time, and it works really, really well. I think a lot of that has to do with the way customer service engages on Twitter. So when somebody shouts out to a brand, a band, an artist, or whatever, and they say, hey, I've got a problem, being able to take that conversation private where not everybody in the universe, because Twitter is the only one that is not a walled garden. Whereas on Facebook, you have to log in and actually be a part of the network in order to see the content that's posted on it. Twitter is public. You can go to twitter.com/somebody's username and actually see their publicly posted content without ever logging into Twitter, which is actually a good thing when you're trying to promote something, because they don't have to have already been connected to Twitter in order to see what you had to say on Twitter, which is really cool. But when you're trying to deal with a customer service issue, obviously you don't want everybody and their dog to see that conversation. You can take that to DM and really get to a point where you can explain things very fully.
Well, speaking of DM, I would be very interested to hear your opinion on direct messaging after someone has followed you. And, I'll follow a band and they'll be like, hey, thanks so much for follow. Here's our latest single.
Right. Again,
it's just going right for the sale.
Right. They're going right for the sale, or it's automated. It says the same thing regardless
I'm
who
sure
you
it's
are.
automated. Mm-hmm.
Automated isn't necessarily bad, but certainly if you're going to do an auto DM, keep it to a thank you. We appreciate our fans, and leave it at that. If you do direct message somebody like that, if you're set up to do that, then you also need to be taking the time to go back through all of your new followers at some point, say once a week, and go through there and go, okay, yeah, these are actually cool. We want to follow them, and engage with them one-on-one. If you're going to do the auto DM, make sure that you take the time to actually personally engage with them as well. I would say my personal preference is that, okay, cool. When somebody follows you, absolutely, yes, engage, but do it in a way that's very personalized. So when I, as Social Michelle R, clicks on an artist that I like and I give them a follow, because they're doing they're either in my area, I want to make sure that I'm keeping up with their live schedule, or they're about to release a new album that I want to make sure that I'm there right when it drops, then I would appreciate personally for whoever's managing that Twitter account, whether that's the band in general or a designated spokesperson, to tweet back and say, hey, we see that you followed. Thanks for the follow. What can we help you do? Take a moment, look and see where they're from. So for instance, for local people that follow Southern Sky on Twitter, we take a moment, we look and see what town they're in. Hey, I see that you're living in Katy, Texas. Well, guess what? In 2 months, we're going to be at such and such location. Take that time to personalize just a little bit. Or for instance, maybe we went and reached out to somebody that was following like a national level group that is really similar in style. Hey, we noticed that you followed us back, and I see you're a big fan of this band too. Really cool. What do you think of their latest release or whatever? There are ways to engage in that conversation that are personalized. And honestly, and truly,
and authentic.
People on Twitter, that's what they're there for. They're there for the personal touch. Give it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree completely. On the same time, we were talking about automating and scheduling, and I feel like there's a place for that, but not for it to be your complete thing. I mean, for a band, automating and scheduling show, these shows are going to be, but unfortunately, most bands, that's all they're that's all they're tweeting.
Guess what? Set it and forget it does not work.
Well, set it and forget that, and then
if that's all you're depending on, they're going to tell that, oh, you just set your automated whatever and you don't ever pay attention to the fan base.
Can you schedule posts on Twitter, like on Facebook?
Yes, you
Like
can.
a tweet?
Depends on what tool you're using. So I mentioned TweetDeck earlier. In TweetDeck, you have the option to schedule a tweet for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days. Actually, I have used several tools that enable me to set up, say, several announcements through a long course of time. Obviously, it takes a few minutes to schedule all those up, type them up, whatever. But then once you've got them typed up, you know they're going to fire when you schedule them.
Right.
Hootsuite will also let you schedule, depending on what kind of investment. There are also some paid tools like Sprout Social is a very reasonably priced tool that will enable you not only to do some scheduling and manage several social media channels in one spot, but that tool in particular also will help you find people that are interested in the same things that you are. So it's really a great discovery tool for finding new fans. Sprout Social.
Cool. Mm-hmm. What was that again? Sprout Social. Yeah, I've heard of that. So for our musicians who are listening and wanting to know the lowdown of the tips, the takeaways, there's so many things out there when you're creating a tweet that when you're starting, you have no idea where to start. So, the things like whatever they say, make sure that you use the whole 140 characters or that kind of thing, or the timing issues, that kind of thing. What are your big tips for
what I tell a lot of clients, not just
tips.
artists, but just about everybody I work with, that life is content. Life already inspires your art, your songwriting, your performances. Take it a step further and archive it as you go on Twitter. You have the ability to post pictures. You have the ability to create short little video clips, native, right there in Twitter. You don't have to have another app. You don't have to be switching back and forth between other things. It's all right there in Twitter. You just have to take the extra time and effort to use the tools. But they're there, make use of them. So one of the fun things that we did with Southern Sky was anytime we traveled, because very frequently we were traveling 2-3 hours on the road from Austin. While I was in the car and the rest of the guys were driving and talking about whatever they were doing, I'd turn the camera out the window and shoot a little bit of the road, because a lot of what we do in this area in Texas really does influence the type of music, what they write, what they sing about, how they perform. And it's all around us. And certainly that landscape in Central Texas is very different from a lot of other places in the world. Sharing that little slice of our world is very, very engaging for fans. Same thing goes with, like I said, the live events. Those live events are content gold. Turn on that camera, take a picture, shoot a little bit of video, give people a chance to see and experience what your live show is about, what it's like. Let them know where you are. I mean, a lot of things that I did, I would actually tag the location of where we were during setup and sound check and that kind of stuff. Run a little video during sound check once they were really up and running and actually running through a song. Hey, we're at this venue. Come check us out. We're going to be here from this time period to this time period. Twitter enables us to do that so easily.
What?
Yeah.
I got one more question.
I'm going to open.
Kind of piggybacking on that. How do you feel, and I heard you laugh a little bit earlier when Kara mentioned this, about sharing your Facebook posts and your Instagram posts to Twitter? How often should you do that if it is beneficial, if you think?
Well, I will say this, if you set it up so that when you post on Facebook it automatically posts to Twitter, it looks lazy. It looks like, I've got time to deal with Facebook, but not you guys on Twitter.
Right.
You really don't. I'm just serving you leftovers. Okay.
Right.
It reads that way. Now Instagram is okay. It's a little bit different in that, okay, that's actually visual content, and people are a little bit nicer about, okay, I get it. You shot it on Instagram, you edited on Instagram, and you're taking the time to share it with us as well. Here's the thing with doing that is that all Instagram will give you is a link. You still have to click and go a step further to actually see that picture. Whereas if you shoot it, share it, do all your stuff on Instagram, it's saved to your phone. Take the extra time and effort yourself rather than making your fans take the extra time and effort, and go ahead and post it natively as a Twitter picture. They'll appreciate it.
So you can,
and you'll get a lot more engagement out of it.
You can post photos and video on Twitter that will show up and be embedded there. Okay.
Completely native. Your limits as far as video are 30 seconds. Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
But there's a lot you could, Vine is only 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And Instagram is 15. So if you're already used to doing that on those platforms, wow, 30 seconds seems quite luxurious, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, if you're posting anything 3 minutes long, you should be posting it on YouTube anyways. Again, this is a platform that's, there and gone and kind of in the moment. 30 minutes seems pretty perfect to for Twitter.
Well,
for sure.
and don't forget that there is full integration with Periscope. So for those of you that really like showing live in the moment and getting live engagement from like backstage before the show sort of thing, now Twitter's fully integrated that in that as soon as you go live, people can watch it in Twitter. Now, granted, they can't engage at the same level that they can if they'll go ahead and click on over to Periscope, where they can give you hearts and comment and that kind of stuff. But if they're just going to consume, they can actually consume live in Twitter now. It's not a link anymore. It actually opens up the media and you can watch it right there natively in Twitter.
Very cool.
I wanted to open up the seat to see if anyone had any questions, and while we're waiting for that, if anyone wants to join in, I wanted to talk about this new development today, that they're going to change the algorithm so that at the top of your when you open Twitter, it's going to have the tweets that they think you will most likely be interested in, followed by everything else reverse chronologically, pretty much making it sound like Facebook, except that a little better than Facebook in some ways. Different, but you're still going to get the, I don't know, personally, like, I think the cool thing about Twitter, especially marketing wise, is that there isn't an algorithm.
Well, and that does work.
That it's everything as it happens.
Both sides of that user conversation. But let me see if I can help you wrap your brain around this just a little bit. So for all of this time up until just now, we've had an absolute raw, unfiltered feed. And depending on how many other accounts you're following, because there's no limit to how many accounts you can follow. If you're only following a handful of other people, other publications, whatever, Twitter's just kind of something you do on the side and you're not really actively engaged in it, then that algorithm's really not going to matter all that much anyway, because what that algorithm is doing is just sorting that small little tiny group of people that you're following. Well, whether you see them in chronological order or in some other order based on interest, it's not going to matter all that much. For people that follow tons and tons of stuff, and I have to be included in that because I've got, over 1,000 people that I'm following. That's a very, very, very noisy, unfiltered stream. That's a crazy fire hose. I personally cannot really glean a lot out of that raw feed, and I don't.
But can't you do that
that's
with
what
lists?
I was about to say. As a power user, I learned long ago that I can create my own filters by creating lists of people that I really want to make sure that I don't miss. And you can still do that. Even with the algorithm, you can still do that. So you can say, I don't care about that algorithm. I have my own personal little filters that I've set up of, bands that I want to follow. And then here's a list of my friends. And then here's a list of fashion stuff that I'm into, whatever other stuff that you're into. You can create as many lists as you want, as large or as small as you want. and basically create your own algorithm. But very few people go to that much effort to filter their own Twitter. So Twitter's kind of helping you out a little bit. And I think for the most part, since you still have the option of looking at the algorithmic feed or a live timeline of the feed, you're not really losing anything. But for those that maybe haven't quite got the hang of it, or they're just not as crazy nuts about Twitter as I am, then that algorithm is actually going to help them to filter out some of the noise, some of the crazy, and get to stuff that they really honestly care about. I think that overall, especially for the casual Twitter user, I think they're going to see a great deal of benefit out of it.
Yeah. It's like more digestible
Certainly.
for someone who is not as crazy about it as
and
you
here's
are.
the thing. There's also a benefit to content producers on Twitter by having this algorithm. So if you do a really good job as a band talking about what you do, what inspires you, talking to other people about the process of creating or the process of life that you're sharing through your musical creations, the better you do at that, the more the algorithm's actually going to benefit you, because you're creating something that other people actually connect to, and that continued engagement tells Twitter that, oh, this particular content producer actually has some really cool stuff to say, and people really enjoy it when they do have something to say. We're going to push them up the algorithm and into people's filters because people actually do get something out of it. It's an incentive for artists, marketers, whoever, to really do what they do and well on Twitter and really talk about the things that matter and the topics that are really important and a passion point for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thanks for that. I think we're going to wrap up a bit here. We've been talking for about 50 minutes, but for the musician, which is our target audience here, do you have any takeaways? Any thoughts that you would really want to impress on them?
I would say first and foremost, keep it real. And the other cardinal rule that is pretty much just as valuable as that is keep it consistent. So make sure that when you're on Twitter, that you're genuine, you're true to you, you're true to your band, you're true to the songs that you play, that you genuinely are sharing why that particular bit of art really inspires and is important to you. Be true to that. And then be consistent in sharing about it and engaging over it and connecting with other people that are just as passionate as you are about what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been really nice to be able to hook up again, and hopefully, I'm sure I'll see you probably tomorrow.
I'm always around.
I know. Well, I'm always around. I'm just lurking. I don't want to jump on until I have something interesting to say.
I got you. But you know what? That's what you learn. The more love you give in these platforms, the more love you get back.
Yeah, definitely. So do you want to tell people where they can find you so that, if they want to check out what you're doing and stuff, they can.
So first and foremost, for those of you that are watching live on the Blab, you can see up here the little bug above my head that says Michelle Stinson Ross. If you go to Google and search for Michelle Stinson Ross, you will find absolutely every variation on social media that I am actively engaged in. But I'll make it a little easier. You can do that same search for Michelle Stinson Ross in Facebook, on Twitter, in LinkedIn, and find specifically channels that I am very actively engaged in. Obviously, you can follow me here in Blab. Love it if you would. But I'm very active on social, and I am absolutely approachable. So never, ever, ever hesitate. If you've got a question, hit me up. I'm happy to help. That's why I'm engaged in social media. I love reaching out and helping other people. So just let me know.
Yes, you're definitely approachable. I appreciate that. So, Erwin, did you want to say where they can find you, and then we'll come off?
Yeah, you can find me. Should have hopefully my website up in the next couple weeks, getting everything set up with that, which will be everupwardent.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, Ever Upward Entertainment, or newly inducted into Twitter, also at Ever Upward ENT. And also Instagram, the same handle as Twitter, and I'll post show videos and photos and stuff like that.
Yep. And I'm Kara Karma, and with engageyourfanbase.com, music marketing blog, demystifying music marketing. And we do this on Blab every week with different guests. And Erwin and I are co-hosting now, which has been awesome. Next week, I believe we are going to be talking about festivals and all that goes into that, and how to be a part of them and that kind of thing. And coming up soon, we're going to be talking about music law with a music lawyer, not a music lawyer, entertainment lawyer. So lots of different topics, but you can find me at Kara Karma on Twitter, Periscope, and Blab. And you can find me at simonsaysbooking.com, where I am a music publicist. So thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This is the 13th installment of the Engage Your Fanbase podcast, and I am going to sign off. See you next week.